I was having a the other day. Obviously, a lot of these petitions go up, and I was over this lockdown period since March till now. Obviously, you watch a lot of TV, you watch a lot of Netflix, you do all that type of stuff. But I got more into like justice projects on Netflix, wrongly accused, things of that nature, miscarriage of justice, evidence tampering, all that type of stuff. Even to the point where I'm watching things about, different types of murderers in different cities and stuff like that. Because your brain just wonders, how do these things continue to happen and what happens, what have you. But it's life. But the other day, I saw a petition up. It's on my Facebook. I shared it to my Facebook. I signed the petition because after watching all that stuff on Netflix about miscarriages of justice, normally to men who look like myself and like you, in America, I felt like it, I wasn't looking for the petitions, but obviously they pop up. And I saw it and I said, here's a guy who he's on death row, like most of these people were on Netflix, spend 15, 20 years in prison on death row, which obviously is not great for your mental, for a crime that you possibly didn't commit. And how these things are carried. So I signed this petition. It's a guy that I went to school with back in the day. A white guy I went to school with back in the day, kind of like, why'd you sign that? Why are you telling people to sign it if you don't know the full story, all this type of stuff, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, but for the same reason I don't know the full story, I could sign it. Basically, like, obviously, somebody believes he's innocent. Some lawyer or somebody who's trying to get this petition out there believes he's innocent, or knows he's innocent, or whatever the case may be, and knows there's a problem with the case. So that's why they're trying to get this petition signed. So when I see men who look like myself, and I'm not trying to save criminals like actual murderers, rapists, child molesters, all that type of stuff, they can all burn in hell. That's fine. That's that. But men who might have been at the scene of the crime but didn't do anything, or men who might have been picked up for something, like, this stuff really happens. People don't believe that. I don't think people believe that the justice system is crooked as fuck. And they don't believe that people are getting framed for crimes they didn't commit. And when they see this stuff on Netflix, for instance, they probably think, oh, yeah, but that's 1 in a million. No, that's loads of people. Mass incarceration is a problem, which we're going to have an episode on later down the line. But in the lieu of this particular situation, what bothers me is, and something that I'll touch on after this as well, what bothers me is that people don't believe this stuff is real. That guys are getting thrown in prison, being put on death row, or even just being in prison and maximum security, lockdown, 23-hour lockdown per day. And they might have not even been guilty of the crime they committed. I mean, that sounds silly. That's redundant. They might not be associated with the crime that they're being said that they committed. And, you see so many stories like Khalif Browder and things like that, where, he wasn't even convicted of anything. He was just put in Rikers Island. Damn, I can't wait for the episode we got for you guys coming soon. But anyway, he was just thrown in prison. So when I see these things and there's a petition, I normally read into the petition and I sign it if I feel like it's a just cause, because I feel like, wow, like, this person could be being railroaded by the American justice system or the British justice system. Who knows? And when I see people attack that, say, nah, but he's guilty, he's been in prison for so long, they did the job properly. I'm like, you don't know that, bro. Same way I don't know if he's guilty. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I'd rather make sure that he gets a free and fair trial than killing innocent men. Yeah. For sure. And I feel like we live in a society, I mean, we're guilty at birth. Black men, we're guilty at birth. It is what it is. I know that because the society we live in, and I mean that globally. I'm not saying that just in America, it's globally. It might be worse in certain places than it is in other places, but we're guilty by association straight away by the color of our skin. So I normally look at those situations, I read into them. And when I see things like that on Netflix, obviously I'm going to start feeling like, okay, when I see something that I could sign a petition or whatever, I'm going to do that, because I don't know, that person might be innocent. He dies, there's a justice system, again, working the way that they planned it to work, instead of doing the police work and the cop work to make sure that these people are getting the right evidence in the right situations and so on and so forth, and the right type of trial or whatever the case may be. When you think about somebody spending 20 years in prison for something they didn't do, you got to think how that would make you feel personally. Like, you have to have some sympathy towards that, because you got to be like, damn, like, could you imagine being innocent, knowing you're innocent, but you're in prison? And you've never been to prison before. You've never done anything like criminal before or anything like that. So now you're locked down with real criminals and people who really have committed atrocities on this planet. And here you are, an innocent person, but now you got to adjust your life and change your life to how they are, because you could die in there. You know what I'm saying? So it touches me a little bit when I see these things, you know, especially people who look like myself who are wrongly accused. And I'm like, damn, man, like, here I am seeing this. I'm, like I said, I've touched on this before. My father went to prison for 16 years. You know, when I see things like that, I'm like, okay, is it right? Is it straightforward shot? Is it, did the evidence make sense? Are they just railroading this? Are they just railroading this guy or this woman or whatever the case may be? And unfortunately in America, not a lot of the times, I'd say at least 50% of the time, they ain't got the right person. You know, especially in these smaller towns and stuff like that, like where racism is still running rife. They don't care. Oh, you black, you're the dude. We're gonna put you in prison. That's it. You're the dude who murdered that dude. Cool, got you. You know, so yeah, it just bothered me to see somebody write paragraphs of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, to why I shouldn't have signed the petition. But for the same reason you're telling me I shouldn't have signed it is also a reason for me to sign it. And that's crazy to me that you don't see that straight away. Because everything you're saying is like, oh, you don't know the whole story. Neither do you. Even if what they put in the newspapers isn't the story.
Yeah, it's the story.
You don't know how that went down. That's the story that the newspaper got.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm always just like, you can't just take what's on the internet or take what's on the media and say, okay, that's the whole thing. Sometimes there's more to it. And you've actually taught me that more as well, because I realized that, like, sometimes when we're looking at content, things that we can make content out of and things of that nature, I'll send you something. You'd be like, okay, cool. And then you'll come back and be like, nah, bro, it was like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because I know you've looked into it. You look beyond the newspapers and all that stuff. You look right into it. Make sure that if we say something where it doesn't have to necessarily be right, but our opinion is closer to right than it is wrong.
Yeah.
So I think, like, people who are quick to judge, you know, you see a man in handcuffs, he's guilty. That's not necessarily the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to kind of dig deeper into it.
There shouldn't be a death row though. Like,
yeah,
that's always something that's intrigued me since a young age. Like, just death row. And I remember there was a film or something like that, Death Row, called Death Row something. I always sort of thought, like, what happens if you're innocent? If you're innocent, like you said, you're in there for 15, 20 years. For me, I'd rather not have the 15, 20 years. I'd rather you just
kill me right then and there.
Do it there and then. I feel like even the 15, 20 years is like...
That's torture.
Torture, yeah. It's a form of torture.
Yeah.
Like, you're
100%.
You're waiting to die. Rather than it just being like, do you know what I mean, like a quick thing.
Yeah.
If there's... Death row can't be a thing because people lie and people are corrupt. Until you stop the human race from lying and corruption from happening, then death row should not be... Death row should not be killing people.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't...
Yeah.
People can make up stories and people can have alliances or have grudges against other people.
Or even police can make people corroborate stories for their better interests.
Of course, yeah. There's a number of different Netflix sort of stories out there. There was one where I was watching the other day where a guy got arrested and sent for life because he happened to be at the corner shop when the police got shot in the head in the car. And
I watched that one. I can't remember the dude's name. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
a black guy, and he they didn't exonerate him. They just said because the evidence isn't substantial enough, we can't retry.
Yeah, and the reason, like, he shot himself in the foot, but he was just telling the truth. He just said, "Yeah, I was there at that time." Like, but he didn't do it.
I didn't have nothing to do with that.
Yeah. And it's stuff like that. When you see stuff like that, you're like, there can't be a death row, because people are just going to be getting murdered for, it's bad as it is with people going in jail
Mm-hmm.
and going to jail for crimes they didn't commit, or going to jail for small charges and end up in like 10 years in prison for carrying a bit of drugs. Do you know what I mean? That's just like stupid.
Yeah.
There was also another thing that I watched on Netflix recently, which I say to anyone to watch. This, I forgot where it was. I think it was in Wisconsin or something. I can't remember. Or maybe it's Detroit. I can't remember. And they put innocent people into jail. They didn't tell people, right? Just to see what it was like for them to be in jail. And this was a place where they were just holding people. So these are people that hadn't been convicted yet. Oh, sorry, they're being convicted, but hadn't been sentenced. So they were still waiting their trial, so to speak. And just the life that they had in there. There were some people that were in there for like 6 months, 8 months, whatever. But the facilities were just a shambles. Do you know what I mean? And those are people that haven't even had their trial.
Yeah. So you don't know if they're guilty or innocent, or if the evidence will prove what exactly.
Yeah, and they're getting treated.
But then to have the idea of death row.
Yeah.
In terms of that could be a possibility in your case.
Exactly.
Like, and obviously not every state still has the death penalty, because they don't. But for the ones that do, and guys that are on there for 30 years, you know, you're like, what are you trying to do? Like break them mentally before you do it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're already in prison. They know they've been sentenced to death. I don't understand how the system works that way. And then at the same time, people on the outside automatically think, well, because they've been sentenced and because they're on death row, they're innocent, they're straight away guilty. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know the ins and outs. You don't know how the story broke down. You don't know if that person was even there. The one that we were talking about, funny enough, the black guy in that situation, I think his name was like David Henry or something like that.
Nice.
He actually turned around. Yeah, I think something like that. But it's crazy because in the situation he was in, it turns out in the case, they started finding out the police were corrupt.
Yeah, but that's
the police officer got killed was corrupt. The two cops who were on the case were corrupt, and they were corrupt with him.
Yeah,
like it's crazy.
They're basically like getting confiscating people's drugs and then selling them back to the drug dealers to make money.
Yeah,
like, but that's what I mean.
And
like
taking money, taking bribes, all sorts.
People are always going to be corrupt, and people are always going to lie. So on that point, there should never be a death row, because you can't trust people, and it'll only be when your friends or your family are in that particular situation, when they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, that you start to stand up and be like, oh wait, the police are corrupt here. It's like, well, I sent around that petition, you know, and they put that long paragraph.
You know, I remember one time, and just this is the last thing I'll say on it. I remember one time when I was dating my ex, I came out the train station. And as I came out there, and this is literally wrong place, wrong time. I've come out the train station. And right in front of the train station, these kids are all having a fight. And a kid gets stabbed. And now straight away, this kid's on the floor, stabbed, bleeding. All these people are trying to help him. All the other kids scram out of everybody's running. We're all standing there. People call the ambulance, so this kid's bleeding. Cops come, and straight away the cops are like talking to me, like grabbing me. And I'm like, whoa. I'm innocent in this. I was just here so the kid survived. Like, he's been stabbed. And he was like, oh, but were you with them? And I was like, no, I just came out the train station. And it was only through the grace of this woman who was like, oh, this guy was on my train. Like, we both came out at the same time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And the cops were like, oh, okay, cool. And that's literally being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, they could have just...
It can literally go that way.
That person could have just arrested you. I'm sure in London there's going to be CCTV, so that might be a bit hard for them to, like...
Yeah, they would have proved I just walked out the train station.
Sentence you, but, like, you could have been put in the holding cell, do you know what I mean? And been in there for a couple of days. I've never been in that situation. I've never had handcuffs on me.
Yeah. You don't know what that does to somebody mentally, man. And that's something we have to be... And that's literally being in the wrong place at the wrong time, just on listening to my music, minding my damn business, and then bang, something happens in front of me. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm not going to run. I'm not guilty of anything. I'm going to stand there. The kid's bleeding. You know what I'm saying? There's blood on the ground. There's people stopping, trying to help. And, you know, that's what people should do. I mean, but to be straight away, and that's why I said we're guilty when we're born. Because straight away, as soon as the cops got there, me being one of the only black guys there, automatically, he must be my brethren. You know, he's on the floor bleeding. So obviously I'm involved. Yeah. And it's like, I don't even know this kid. I've never seen this kid before in my life. You know what I'm saying? But that's the whole thing. But yeah, man, I think before we start judging people, we got to start getting the information. I think that's the main thing in that situation. And when it comes to things like death row and things like that, like you said, when you can't trust the justice system, how can you sentence anyone to death? It doesn't make any sense. But that's just food for thought for some people, man. This is Bird Lines. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell to know when we post. And get us in the comments, especially if you've been through anything like this or anybody in your family have been through anything like this.